You're watching Fugitive Red-Eye, and welcome to another episode of Nostalgic Gaming Stories. Today I'm going to be talking about something that a lot of people don't seem to know about. In fact, I can hardly find any information about it online. That being the Halo 3 virus. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the Halo 3 virus, which I assume most of you are since it's relatively unknown online, essentially, with very early copies of Halo 3, there was a recurring issue where they would just brick your Xbox 360. They would completely red ring it and destroy it. I don't think there's ever been any official word on this that I've seen anywhere online, because, like I said, there's very little information I could find about it. But essentially, you'd pop in the disc, and after you use it a few times, eventually your Xbox would start overheating, and eventually it would just start red-ringing altogether. Now, the one bit of information I did find about it online was someone talking about it, and another person trying to dispute them, saying they just overused their Xbox and overheated it. And while I'd say that could definitely be a factor, I do know that when I've seen it in action, it wasn't used for very long, and it immediately red-ringed. So the way I came across the Halo 3 virus was back when Halo 3 first came out. Danny, of course, got a copy of Halo 3, being the big Halo fan that he is. And he brought his Xbox over to my house. So we popped in Halo 3, it starts up, we play it for about 5 minutes, and then all of a sudden the console red rings. Now, prior to this, Danny had played the first 2 campaign missions previously at home, but he hadn't played through the whole game as of yet. So that tells me right there that the whole idea of it being, overuse of the Xbox, I find very unlikely because it wasn't used for very long, and there was time in between when it was used previously to the time we actually got the virus. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, this is completely anecdotal. I can't find any evidence of this online, but I'm pretty sure they actually recalled the very first version of Halo 3 and released a later version that was patched. Again, I can find no information of this online. I'm going completely off memory, so do forgive me for that, but that's what I remembered very distinctly. And that's why there's actually an error message that exists within Halo 3. If you try to play a map that you created in the original version of Halo 3, it will be incompatible with current versions. That's why there's a message that says this map is incompatible. It might have been made using an older version of Halo 3. And that's a very common error message we would get, because we had the earlier versions of Halo 3. But because that little stipulation in the error message exists, I do think that there's at least some truth to the Halo 3 virus. Again, I don't know if virus is an accurate term either, but it was definitely a flaw in the disk that would cause consoles to just brick. To be perfectly fair, you could attribute this to how fragile the original model of the Xbox 360 is, because it's not very well built. As much as I love it, it does have a lot of issues. But the Halo 3 virus is something I always remember because it's something that I experienced. I saw it destroy a console right in front of me. Some people are going to dispute me and say that the console was either overheated, it got a red ring because of how fragile they are, something like that. And while that could very well be true, the Halo 3 virus is something that we passed around a lot back in the day. We all talked about it and how horrible it was, and we all remember it. I'm just surprised that no one else has really talked about it online other than that one forum post I saw. Anyway, that about does it for this episode of Nostalgic Gaming Stories. There's not a whole lot more to this story, unfortunately. But in case you can't tell, I did hook my good mic up again. It's hooked up to a different computer than I usually record on, but I think the audio quality should be what it was at before. I'm still fiddling with some things to get my whole setup back to where it was, but this should sound like my videos normally do now. This should be a good audio quality. But anyway, do let me know in the comments what you thought of this video, and if you have anything to add or expand on, if you remember the Halo 3 virus. And as always, you have a great rest of the day.
Subscribe to Fugitive Red-Eye.